And what we try to explain over the days is that what we are and who we are is not something which is a stable fact. It's not that, you are the same always. We are changing all the time, we're developing. We get new experiences which are changing us. We change taste. There are changes all the time, basically. And then we moved into more to the depth, looking at, okay, what are our thoughts? How are our thoughts connected to it? Because with our thoughts we have the tendency kind of to define ourselves. And we talked about using our thoughts in a way to understand things, and understanding is always moving through polarity, because we live in a world which is built in polarity. And we came to the question, are we our thoughts? Are we what we think we are? Are we what we believe we are? Are our beliefs the absolute truth? And looking to that, we came to the conclusion that basically, of course, what we believe in is our truth, is our reality. And we build our reality through stories we make up in our minds. And also, from moment to moment, we create our own reality by what we take from the world as signals, as experience, and how we translate that and how we put this in a certain order. And what we take out is often an affirmation of the reality we built already in that moment. That could be a week later different. So we could come to exactly the same situation, the same experience, and 1 week we would kind of experience this as negative and would build a negative reality around it, and maybe a week later we would experience it as very positive. So when you look to the depth of this, that means that we are not living in a stable world. Maybe the world is stable, but our reality is not stable at all. But at the same time, we try through our mind to stabilize reality. Make it forever. This is how it is. This is the truth. This is the reality. If I don't like cheese, now I will never like cheese. I'm a person who doesn't like cheese. If we have a period that we are very sensitive to rejection, it means that we will see rejection everywhere. If we have a fear for dogs, Israel is full of dogs. If we are in love, the whole world looks friendly. People are open and warm. It's heaven on earth. If we worry a lot, we find 1,000 reasons why it's right to worry. So basically, we're looking for the facts which are affirming our state of mind, our reality of that moment. So you can look at that different ways. You can look at it in a way that you say, okay, you know, this is happening. And this is how my mind is working. So this is what I am. Everybody is rejecting me. I'm absolutely right to worry. And then we have a very, very strong identification with our thoughts. But you can look at it also in a different way. And when you move more to the backdrop of the mind and to the witness, and how the witness is moving with this, there's a curiosity. So if we worry a lot, we're learning about worrying. We're investigating worry. And we find 1,000,000 reasons to worry. And there are more as 1,000,000 reasons to worry about. There's always something to worry about. If we feel more happy, and that's more a feeling, but still it has an influence on how our mind is working, we're much more focused on happiness. So we're investigating the experience and the thoughts, the beliefs around happiness. And if we give ourselves the freedom to experience, to investigate to the depth, then at a certain moment we come to a point where a certain subject we're moving through becomes very well known, very well experienced. We master it. We understand it to the depth, and we are not afraid to experience it to the depth. And this is basically in our lives how we learn to master different areas of life. It's like a study, a specialism. So some people, for a long period, are specialized in worry. Some people, for a long period, are specialized in grief. Some people, for a long period, are specialized in physical illness. Some people, for a long period, are specialized in social interaction. Or certain aspects of social interaction. So basically, when you look to the depth, what we do partly in our lives is to study how it is to be human. With all the different human aspects. How is it to be a criminal? How is it to be a dropout? How is it to be an outsider? How is it to be an insider? How is it to be part of? How is it to be a family member? How is it to be a father? How is it to be a mother? They're all different aspects of life. How is it to be a professional? if we are able to contain the emotions, the feelings which are coming with this, and we have an understanding of how it works, and we master a certain area, that means that we find our own authenticity in this area. We are not afraid for any confrontation with whatever we master. And so bit by bit, maybe through a lot of lifetimes, we come to a position where we have a feeling that we master life. Whatever life is bringing us, we don't need to be fearful. We're able to deal with it. It doesn't mean that we have experienced everything already, but by moving through experience, by understanding, we build self-confidence. So, some of us think if you've got a life without any difficulties, then you do things very well. So if we kind of do exactly the right things in our lives, there will be no difficulties, there will be no pain, there will be no suffering, everything will be honky-dory. So it starts already by buying and eating the right cereals in the morning. Having a wife and 2 kids. There's a lot of conditions there. So this is conditional thinking. Life itself is not conditional. It's quite unconditional. It's unconditionally beautiful, unconditionally cruel, unconditionally painful. If you deserve it or not. There is not something like deserving happiness. Deserving good luck. Which is important to understand because especially when more difficult things are happening to us, we have a tendency to see it as a punishment instead of as a challenge. I did something wrong, so now I am suffering. And this goes quite far, especially in the spiritual world, you know, because you were a bad guy in a past life, now you get a car accident or migraines. This is the punishment. It's not only that punishment is moving over death in either you go to heaven or to hell, but even after heaven and hell, it's moving into the next life, if you believe in reincarnation. So which means basically that it's never good enough. There's always a punishment. You recognize what I'm talking about? This is fear-based. It's really not about punishment, but it's about understanding, experiencing to the depth, and being able to master. And master is nothing else as these two aspects coming together, but especially the ability to move to the depth of experience. I know this. I'm not afraid to live this aspect of life. And then when you look objectively to the life of each person, what you see is that in the life of each person beautiful things are happening and sad things are happening. Things which are quite uplifting and things which are difficult or seen as difficult. But what is difficult for us is quite personal. We all have our kind of personal lesson. We have sensitivities on certain areas. And these are the areas which kind of come in very strongly. We wrestle more with. Some people have a difficulty to deal with loss or saying goodbye. So that means if there is a loss in their lives, it's hard work to move through this. Other people, it's quite easy to say goodbye or to deal with loss. They need less time. It's less an effort. They know the different phases you need to move through, the trajectory you have to move through, and there's a kind of trust that you're able to deal with that. Done it, know it, it's well known. Some people have a really, really big sensitivity for rejection. So when there's a rejection, it's the end of the world. It's very, very difficult. Other people master much more rejection. So if there's a rejection, they don't fall apart. Some people have really, really, really a difficulty with anger. So they're oversensitive, almost allergic to anger. So when I started to talk, I started to talk about honesty. And about truthfulness. In the first place towards yourself. And in this honesty and truthfulness is so important. To allow yourself to have sensitivities. To allow yourself to have difficulties in certain areas. It's often that we don't allow ourselves to have these difficulties. That we don't allow ourselves to have weaknesses. It's too vulnerable. So we cover it up. And this is where we often kind of move into ego structures. Where we move into pretense. Where we start to build a whole reality which is not authentic towards us, but a reality which we think is acceptable for the world around ourselves. And often what's happening in this is that we prevent ourselves to master certain aspects of life which are really, really important to us. We don't move there. And we don't move there because of the fear of judgment. But the real judgment is our judgment about it. A strong example of this is insecurity. Most of us are quite insecure. And insecurity is part of the human makeup. We all know inside ourselves insecurity. And especially in our 10 ages, this insecurity can be very strong. And especially to people we give authority. And often the people we fall in love with, we give a lot of authority. So for a boy in his 10 ages to speak to a girl, he meets a lot of insecurity, and I think the other way around as well. Partly of the authority we give. But you're not allowed to be insecure, because if you're insecure, you're not cool. And what I saw with a lot of boys of my age in the 10 ages was that they kind of cover up the insecurity with rudeness. But rudeness is really not that attractive. So there's an ego of I don't give a damn. And this is basically how we it becomes more difficult to move through lessons. Insecurity is one of the most important building stones of our being. If we allow ourselves to be insecure, we can move into purity. If we don't allow ourselves to be insecure, we become rigid. There's only one reality. There's only one way. We are losing our purity. We become dictatorial. You recognize what I'm talking about? So by mastering insecurity, we move into purity. We're not afraid to be insecure anymore. Nothing is absolute. When we look to the emotion anger, an emotion we're wrestling with as well, and yesterday I talked a little bit about anger, that anger is, for a lot of people, when you're angry, is the same as destructiveness. We get angry when something is moving over our borders. It's an instinct. When we feel that we are in danger. This can be psychologically, this can be physical, this can be your children or your loved ones. So anger is a defense. It's putting a border. Like a dog barks when you move inside his territory. This is the basis of anger. So the most simple way to express anger is by putting a border. Saying, Losha, don't want this. No thank you. This is the most simple way to express anger. It's difficult for us to put borders, because if we put a border, it's often taken as a rejection. It's like you have no right to put borders. And if we put a border, because it's really too much, and the border is denied, then we really get pissed off. Or we get very angry sometimes when we get rejected because we feel not seen, betrayed. This is also a border.
But sometimes I feel like I don't know what I want like when someone asks me to do something.
Yeah.
Not always I aware of what I really want, if I want to do it or not. And sometimes I'm saying yes, and then I realize that I didn't want it, but it's too late to say.
It's never too late to say no. There's a lot of things we cannot oversee. And then when we're in the process, at a certain moment we feel, no, not my piece of cake, I don't want this. And you can every moment always say no. It's absolutely not true, and especially between boys and girls, this idea that if you give a boy one finger, he has the right to take the whole hand, the arm, the rest of your body, your soul and everything. And that's kind of bullshit. And this is basically fear for the rejection of the boy and the anger of the boy, because he will be disappointed. But you can always say no. You have the right to say no. You don't know what you get involved in. You can choose for a job and think this is the greatest job in my life. And then, you know, after you work for a month, you see, oh no, horrible colleagues. The job is maybe nice, but the colleagues are so horrible, and the atmosphere is so horrible that I don't want to work here anymore. But because you say yes, and you said yes to the job, you're obliged to stay there for at least 3 years. This is self-torture. This is to do with authenticity, with honesty. You understand? Giving yourself a break to say then to your boss or the one you applied with for the job, to say, you know, I love the job. I'm absolutely fit to do the job, but the atmosphere in this company is so bad, I don't want to be here. I'm sorry. I'm leaving. And of course, by law, this is made very difficult, because, you know, if you say, okay, I'm leaving my job, you don't get any social security or whatever, so, but you can at least apply for another job. By law, the job became a little bit a trap. By law, a relationship became a little bit a trap. Because before you know, you're married, you're 19 years old, you meet a nice boy, and, you know, in the height of romance and with the pressure from parents, you know, get children, get married quickly. You get married, and a few years later you find out that it's awful. It's not making you happy. So there is a lot of traps in society, but also in our mind, which are built that we don't know what we're really going into, and then when you move into, we have the idea, the belief that we are caught, we lose our freedom. And it doesn't mean that it's always wrong. Sometimes it goes great. You're 19, you find a partner, and this is the partner of your life. This is the best partner. But sometimes it goes wrong. Both is possible. Sometimes life together is hell. Sometimes the job you thought was a great job is hell. Sometimes when you move into a certain situation you think is nice, and you're curious and you want to find out what it is about, is moving into the direction where you feel, no, I don't want this. And when you say yes, that doesn't mean that you say yes forever and the whole way. So it's so beautiful that you bring this forward, Maital, because if we move over the borders of like and dislike, which is so much connected with anger, is this right for me or not right for me? We lose track of what's right for us and what's not right for us. And sometimes authority has a big influence on this. Authority telling us what's right for us. And then authority telling us what's right for us, sometimes we move over all our inner borders. And this is creating direct damage on our existence. We lose, or we got the feeling that we could lose the right to exist. We lose connection with the purity of our existence. It's like we're not allowed to be ourselves anymore. We are not allowed to be authentic. We lose ourselves. We suffer to be acceptable. And this is creating a very, very deep loneliness. Nobody really cares about me. Nobody really loves me. Nobody really sees me. Nobody really takes care of me. I'm totally alone in this world and I have to pretend that everything is hunky-dory, is okay. This is a situation we all learn in our lives. I don't think there's many people moving through this life not learning this situation, the situation where you basically lost yourself. Where you try to adjust yourself so much to what we think outer authority wants of us. And we lose in this sometimes the connection with the deepest truth inside ourselves. And the deepest truth is not a truth. But the deepest truth inside ourselves is how we are built, how we perceive. No human being, nothing what is created is exactly the same. If you look to the flowers, you see that there are some flowers who have the same name, but none of those flowers is exactly the same. Non-human being is exactly the same. That means that how we perceive the world is unique for all of us. How we experience is unique. There is nobody who experiences life like we do. There is nobody who brings exactly the same mixture of qualities as we have. That doesn't make us special. more special as any other human being. But we are special in how unique we are. That means if we move from our authenticity, what comes forward is our unique angle of life.
What?
Our unique experience angle of life, what we move through. And this is never selfish. This is always enriching for the whole. We are part of creation, we witness creation, we are aware of creation, we live creation. In a unique way. And in this, we're adding to creation, we're enriching creation. We affirm in our own special way. We learn, we share our learnings. The more people who are able to contain insecurity, the less insecurity becomes an issue. Our parents already teach us it's not a big deal. It's just insecurity. You can contain it. It's just a feeling of insecurity. And it helps us to be pure. This is how we move through lessons, also as humanity. Right now, one of the main lessons is to deal with fear. So a lot of us give the message to others that fear is something to be fearful of. Fear is spooky. But fear is just a human emotion. So that means if fear becomes very, very spooky and something to be very, very fearful of, then fear gets very strong. It becomes a big issue. So that means that we need more fear as necessary, because a lot of fear is created. Look, this is the human sensitivity right now, fear. The question is, why is fear so pronunciated? Does it come forward so strong? It gives us as humanity also the possibility to learn to contain our fears. And actively we're researching it. Look at what's on television, all this horror, all this shooting, all this death. We're researching it. You know, when we look at amusement on the television, it's all disasters. Husbands which are disloyal, females which are disloyal, death, illness, rejection. All the things we fear in life are happening there. Cruelty. We're investigating this as humanity. We're investigating this bit by bit to learn to master it. And it works like this also a little bit. You know, if you see some violence on television in the beginning, you're very, very, very afraid, but at a certain moment you're able to contain more. Maybe to a point which is unhealthy. It's not realistic anymore. But there is less fear. So when you look at fear, the other side of fear is freedom. And where there is freedom, there is love possible. Unconditional love. The more fear there is, the more conditional the love becomes. So the more we are able to contain our fears, to understand them. And the less we are fearful of the fear, the more there is a self-confidence to deal with fear, the more unconditional our love becomes. Sometimes as a mother you can have a feeling that one of the children, or as a father you can have a feeling that one of the children will not grow old. So this is a fear, this is a feeling, and maybe it's true and maybe not, you don't know. But it's also a fear. This child maybe will not grow old. So if you let yourself be totally entangled in this fear, it could be a reason not to love this child so much. Because you're going to lose it anyhow. And you create a reality. You could also turn it around, what some people do. They say, you know, I have to be there totally from my heart for this child, because probably this child will not stay that long. If you believe in your feeling. Both is placing conditions on yourself, on the child, on love. Love in its depth doesn't let itself to be dictated. It's there or it's not there. The love we feel for a flower, for another person, for the world, is unique as it is in any moment.
Why does it, like, if you have that openness and that love, it comes creeping up? Do you understand what I mean? Like, if you look at your child and you'll feel that openness and you'll feel that love, in that moment, you have a feeling that it will come and the fear will creep up.
The fear could creep up, and that's basically that there is a fear to lose the child. Often it will creep up, that some harm will come to the child, and there's not enough self-confidence that you're able to deal with that. It's all about you. What creeps up is about you. It's not about the love. It's not about the child. What we do is that we project it on the child. But it's really about us. So if it creeps up and you can say, hello my friend. So if I need to experience this in my life, it will come forward. But it's not there right now. You can let it go. But often what we do is we grab it. And then the fear becomes a bigger reality as the love you feel. It's like we make an active choice for the fear, which just creeps up. It's not realistic, it's an illusion, it's not there right now.
But if it comes and you didn't expect it, sometimes the shock is so big that it's traumatic.
Yeah.
It does cause some...
Absolutely true.
And then you have to deal with this trauma.
Yeah. Exactly. This is why I said that life, it can be unconditionally cruel. But should we stop loving because this could happen? Should we put conditions on our love towards our children because we could lose a child? Or towards our partners because we could lose a partner? Is this the best way to deal with it? Is it less painful when you held back your love and the child dies? my experiences with people in a grief process, when it's held back, there is not only the incredible pain of loss, but there's also the guilt and the missed opportunities, which sometimes are the most difficult thing to live with, the missed opportunities. Why was I never able to say I love you to my son? Why didn't I spend more time with my wife? Now it's too late. Why was I never able to show the depth of my feelings? Sometimes things are happening in life, and I think in the life of all of us, which are traumatic, which are too big to contain at that moment. That means that there is a little rupture created, and we encapsulate and we cannot fit it in our daily lives at that moment. But there is a later moment, maybe, in which we're able to contain it. And we are not alone. We're really here to help and support each other. And it makes such a difference if you are surrounded by people, if something is happening which is too much to contain, who are containing this together with you. It's allowed to exist. The most shocking and difficult things, the biggest cruelty, is not created by life itself, but by our attitude towards life. It's not allowed to exist. You're in pain, but we don't want to see it. It's not allowed to exist. Working for a period quite intensively with grief therapy, a story what I heard a lot in Holland is that you lose somebody, and then you walk in the street and you see somebody you know, a friend or somebody you just know, and they see you in the end of the street and they make a turn. They don't want to meet you. It's too difficult. This gives you the feeling that you're totally isolated in your grief. People turn away. It's too much. It's too difficult. This is making the grief much more difficult. It's not only that you're in pain and your heart is ruptured, but you also lose a big part of your social life. People turn away, leave you. Happily, so often there are a few people who are able to stand with you in the grief process. And they become friends forever, sometimes, or for a period, for sometimes. But we leave each other incredibly alone sometimes in our personal suffering, out of fear that the same suffering will come to us. We give reasons. If you got cancer, now it's changing because now everybody gets cancer. But you know, when I was younger, cancer was more seldom. It seems to be. At least it was not talked about so much. But if you got cancer, it was like, you know, people would kind of walk around you. She's got C. And there was a reason why she got C. Cancer. She got C because eating the wrong food, living in the wrong environment, having the wrong husband, the wrong parents. There is a reason for it, and when we find the reason, we can ignore it. Because we don't do the same thing. We are better. This is incredibly cruel when you look into it. And it's based on fear. Fear that the same experience could come to you. And it's so opposite of learning about life. You know, I'm not saying, you know, I've got cancer, dive all on me. But by watching and being part of, if I've got cancer of my life and seeing how I'm dealing with it, what I'm wrestling with, we all can learn. And this is how we learn about cancer. About patients who wrote books, people who talk about it on television. And we get less fearful. We see that it's all human, that it's not something which is only horrific. It's a whole process. So our own individual experience, when shared, when we're authentic in it, is really supporting other people as well to move through the same experience. It's never selfish. Whatever experience you're moving through, it's never selfish. If we are really very cruel, psychopathic in our lives, and we do a lot of damage to ourselves and to the world around us. Also, this is an example. This looks incredibly selfish, but we're not, in the depth, not able to be selfish. They're the bad examples. We look at it, we investigate it, we learn about it, and this is not the way we want it. You understand? And you see this. If you sitting here in a Midrachof, in a restaurant, and you sit with a group of people, you know, you all sit in your own table, quite isolated. And there comes somebody who's passing, who has absolute antisocial behavior. And does something shocking. Immediately you see that all the tables start to socialize. Get a better behavior. It polarizes. This is not what we want, so we move a little bit in the other direction. You recognize what I'm talking about? Yeah. That's a whole process. Nothing is perfect because we're in a process, but it's a whole process. Whole process of learning, experiencing, moving through experience. Mastering life. And life is so complex and has so many sides, it's not easy to master, it's not one subject. Almost everything is possible. So to wrap it up, if we allow ourselves to experience, understand life, then, and let go of a lot of our fears, and let go, what I mean with it is not taking them that serious. Get the self-confidence that we're able to deal with our fears. Then what happens by itself is that we start to live in the here and now. We open up towards life. Life is not the stranger anymore. Life is not an enemy. Life is not something abstract which is demanded from you by a kind of authority, which is all illusions. This is not what life is. Life is being alive. Life is part of you. And life is part of everybody. As existence is part of you and part of everybody. As being is part of you and part of everybody. So what I think, and then I'm going to finish this long talk, what I think is the first commandment, if you think in commandment, and the most important commandment is live. Just live. Without conditions. There is a universe which is created, which is alive, which is moving through time, which is evolving, developing, and we are part of this. So the first commandment is the commandment which created this. If you look at it religious or not religious, but this is the movement beyond it. Something is moving beyond it through all of this happening. It's a happening. And we are part of the happening. So the moment we draw back from this happening and make a difference between us and the happening in a way that we start to fight the happening, which is life, we become destructive. We are not the happening, but we are part of the happening. We are not our physical body. And we are our physical body. We are more as our physical body. But right now, we also are our physical body. We are not life, and at the same time we are alive. So right now, we live. And it brings me back to what Martel was bringing forward, that we also have got a free will, which means that at any moment we can decide this is my piece of cake and this is not my piece of cake. But in some things there is no free will. It happens. Whatever we try, whatever we do, we cannot influence it. And this is difficult to see the difference between free will. Yes, I like this, no, I don't like this. I want this and I don't want that. And the disasters or the good luck, what just happens by itself. You had no choice in that. Both is there. And tomorrow I'm going to talk a little bit about that, the whole tension between free will and determination, these two laws.